So we finish off our meal. We have a nice evening, relatively nice evening with Verin and Sathan, the village elder. Roden and the other elf that we haven't known the name of yet. they sat away from us. Roden was the one that was giving us rather a cold welcome to the village. He was rather racist towards us being a dwarf. So he doesn't speak to us at all for the rest of the evening, but that suits us probably to the ground. Eventually, the fire starts to burn low, and we start to feel our eyelids getting heavy. And you notice that the elves are continuing. They're just talking around. They don't show signs of tiring. And you think, I wonder what time these guys go to bed. And then you, as you think that, you remember, no, elves don't sleep. As far as you understand, you've never grown up around elves, but they're not uncommon. You've just never spent time in their community, really. But as far as you understand it, elves don't sleep. They just need to sort of meditate and rest for a few hours. So when you come to this realization, you suddenly think, oh, I wonder if they've even got a place where I can stay, or whether I should sleep outside, I guess. So you have an option to make at this stage, not enough to like draw somebody specifically for it, but just in the chat, tell me, would you prefer Apis to sort of go to the outskirts of the village and set up camp in the woods, the way that they're quite accustomed to doing so with their bedroll and blanket, just find a little clearing or something, or would you prefer for us to ask somebody in the village if they have a building that we can sleep in for more protection? Part of the brain says to sleep by the fire, maybe the slowly dying bonfire in the middle of the town. Where else? Find a couch. Part of the brain says to ask them if we can get a couch to crash on in somebody's house for the night. Another part of the brain says, yeah, let's see if we can make friends and ask someone where to sleep. Go to the edges in the woods. Ooh, it's a bit of a tie between going to the woods or going to couch crash. So I will make an actual poll on where it would be then. If it was more of a consensus, we would just go with the consensus. But as it is not, we will go where to sleep and make an actual poll on it. In the woods, or ask. In the woods, ask for a couch, or in the village streets. Alright, so you've got three options. You've got just 1 minute to decide. You can vote on those in the chat now. Do you want to go into the woods, which includes just like anywhere outside of the village? Do you want to ask for a couch, which includes like a barn or some like asking someone for help, seeing if they have a bed or some bedding or a couch or anything that you can sleep on? Or do you want to stay in the village but instead of out in the woods, but just not ask somebody for help and instead just find a place on the streets, like maybe by the bonfire or something like that? So you've got 30 seconds left to decide and vote in the chat if that's something you want to vote on. Apis is quite indecisive as a person. They have quite a hard time coming to a decision, so they have a lot of different thoughts, a lot of different streams of consciousness within their own mind. So sometimes they have a hard time kind of making a decision, and it takes a little while. We could ask it in Sylvan since they don't speak Common. Our buddy who helped us with the owlbear speaks Common, yep, and he speaks Sylvan as well. Alright, so with 61% of the vote, we decide to ask them. 61% of the vote, we decide to ask somebody for a couch, somewhere to sleep for the night. The friendly elf lady might seem like she might help us, yes. So we've got two people in this town who are particularly friendly towards us. Sathan, who is the spiritual leader, elder, and acolyte of E06, which has probably come up in conversation while you are talking to her. E06 being the god of the forests and fungus and plant life. We've got Verin, who is the hunter warrior, and we've got Talila, who is the alchemist who doesn't really alchemist/cook, and a bit of a tinkerer, and she doesn't really speak much Common. Part of the mind says, I need sleep, I need coffee. Who needs sleep when I have coffee? All right. So we let's just I'll roll a dice to see which of the three of those three friendly people are closest to us at the time when we decide to ask somebody for a place to sleep. It is the elder, Scythen. So Scythen happens to be sidling past on her way through the main street, walking from one place to another. Maybe she's cleaning up her plate and going back for seconds or something. And maybe not Rodin though. We won't ask Rodin for a place to sleep unless we wanted to do so just to troll him. And we, excuse me, Scythen, and she says, yes. How can I help you, Apis? What was everything to your liking? Was that sufficient food? There's plenty more if you want it. No, I'm stuffed. That was a lot. I already had 2.5 plates full. I was wondering, you don't need to sleep, do you? She sort of laughs. No, we don't exactly need to sleep, but we do have a hall for visitors if and when they need to rest, or sometimes occasionally we get sick and need time to recover while lying down. So we do have beds here, just not a lot of them. So you're welcome to use that bed, absolutely. It's just down here if you are. Would you like me to show you now? And you sort of like, yeah, you kind of nod, and she recognizes that you're getting a bit tired. She says, right, very well, just down this way then, I'll lead you to it. And she walks down and passes by the bonfire and the table that's been set up with the remains of the feast on it. And she gestures off to a building on the other side of town, which hasn't seemingly seen any damage in the attack from the ogre. And it's pretty well boarded up. You can see that not boarded up, that's probably the wrong impression. It's pretty well secure in that it's got a door that closes and each of the windows has thick wooden shutters on them. And on the inside, when she opens the door and walks you in, you can see that it's very dark. It's like designed to be able to be sort of blackout effectively. She just waves her hand and a wisp of flame appears over her fingers, and then she holds that out to a torch in a bracket on either side of the door and lights them up. And with the flickering of the light, it illuminates the room a little better, and you can see that there is a series of 3 sort of almost like warlike cots, sort of military hospital sort of esque cots. And she says, as I say, we normally use this room for if people need to come over a poison or something that has succumbed to them on their travels through the forest. Maybe an attack, or they're overcoming a wound and they need some time to rest and recover. So it might not be the most comfortable, but to your tired eyes, you see the cots and you think, lovely. It'd be nice to not have to sleep on the hard ground or on a bedroll for a night out in the wilderness. As used to it as you are as a ranger. So you thank her for it, and you drop your belongings by the bed, and then you hold up the rope just as she's leaving. Is there anything else I can do? And you say, what was her name? Talia, was it? And she says, Talila. Talila, right? Sorry. Talila said that this is mine to keep, and she says, yes, it is. I arranged it myself. She says, and you say, oh. She said it had some sort of like extra properties, and she sort of laughs and nods and says, it does. I won't spoil the game by telling you exactly what they are. I find it a little more fun if you can work them out for yourself. Just spend some time looking at it and sort of playing with it, and you'll work out exactly what it does. And in the morning, if you haven't worked out every one of its properties, I can fill you in on the rest. Says, all right you are, and she leaves and closes the door. So you are before bed. You are on the night of this nice feast and helping out these relative strangers. Part of your brain says, is it some sort of game? And then another part of your brain says, maybe think about a knot. And you hold it in your hand. And you think about a knot. Think about maybe knotting it. Nothing happens. You sort of run it between your fingers. It's made of silk. It's like really strong, much stronger than you'd expect for the silk that it's made of. You sort of coil it out, and then you measure it out in arm lengths. and you realize that it's about 60 feet long, give or take. So coil it round. You let it dangle, you hold it from one end, you sort of throw it in the air and it falls to the ground. It just seems to be a silk rope. What am I going to do now is I'm going to roll a skill check on behalf of Apis Hive using Apis's modifiers and everything. We're going to roll a skill Arcana check. Now we know Arcana, unrecognized command. Oops, because I used a slash instead of an exclamation point. Skill Arca. A 22. Look at that. We got a 19 plus our 3 Arcana. So because how that worked for people who don't know D&D too well, you can see down there in the skill box, we're proficient in animal handling, athletics, perception, stealth, and survival. We're not proficient in Arcana. And so because we're not proficient in Arcana, it just uses the baseline intelligence modifier, which is a +3. So if we were proficient, we'd also get a +2 on top of that. But hey. All right, so with the 22 Arcana, you run it through your fingers, you realize it's definitely got to be magical, and you realize, I guess it just doesn't, maybe it just doesn't do anything particular. Maybe instead it just has magical qualities to it. So thinking that, you get your, what have you got in your, you've got a short sword. You draw your short sword out, and you get right down to the end of it. You get like the last 3 inches or so of it, and you curl it over so the last 3 inches are in your hand, and you run your short sword through the loop. And then thinking, well, if this is not it, then I might be breaking this rope. But at least then I'm only losing 3 inches off the end of it. And you slice it, and you cut the rope into 2 bits, a 3-inch section and a 59-foot 9-inch section. There you go, maths. And as you cut it, you see that the threads of the silk start to wisp outwards and are just kind of like holding there, almost like the end of the tentacles in the blue Avatar movie. Neither one seems to do anything. They don't wriggle in your hands. They don't do anything. But then you put them back together, and the threads knit back together, and in the course of about 6 seconds, it's back on. It's tied itself back together again, and it's mended itself. And you think, oh, that's pretty useful. So you get the short sword back out again, and you get another section of the rope a little bit further down, maybe like a foot in, and it does say 50. Yeah, that was a mistake on my part. Most ropes are 50. I forgot to tell Spidey, who makes these things for me. I forgot to tell Spidey that it was actually a 60-foot rope. You run your sword just carefully across it, not to cut all the way through, but to like cut it like a quarter of the way down the rope. And as you cut it, you feel like this is actually, it's pretty hard to cut. Like you have to put in quite a lot of force to cut this rope. It's like resisting you. And sure enough, you look real close as you're cutting the threads of it, and you can see that they are starting to knit back together instantly. As soon as you've cut it, it starts to knit back together again. So it's quite resistant to being cut. You do notice, however, that when you cut it, and you keep doing this a few times to see if there's like a limit on it, you notice that as you're cutting it, it seems to be pulling threads from further down the rope. And so the rope is not getting any weaker in that particular part, but it's getting weaker overall as a whole rope. And as you start to realize that, and it's starting to show signs of kind of fraying all the way down the rope, you think, crap, I may have tested this too much and I may have broken it. So you stop testing it and you think, damn it, have I just weakened the magic rope that they gave me with too much enthusiasm for testing it? But after about 5 minutes, you notice that it's starting to recover. It's starting to grow more threads and recover itself. So it's not only a rope that fixes itself, but if it's left with at least 1 hit point, it will continually regenerate hit points. So it has a regeneration ability to this rope as well. You think, that could be pretty useful indeed. Pretty useful indeed. It's a Deadpool rope, that's right. It has hit points. Yes, it does. It has an AC and it has hit points. Since you've spent the first hour with it and like playing with it, you've spent a good hour playing with this thing now. I will say that you have worked out through messing around that it has an armor class of 20. So in order to do any damage to this rope at all, you need to get a 20 on your attack roll. And even if you hit it, it's got 20 hit points. So you need to do 20 hit points in order to destroy it effectively. It recovers 1 hit point every 5 minutes. So it is a rope of mending, perhaps. It is a good AC, yeah. It's a good strong elven rope. This part of the brain says it's sleepy and needs to rest. Yeah, probably. Remember to feed and walk your rope every day. Rope enjoys cuddles. What about tying it to things? Doesn't that do anything? Resists untying? Fuse the knot? Anything like that? So you think, I wonder if it does anything else. And you sort of tie it to the edge of the bedpost. And it ties just as well as a silk rope would normally tie. You do a decent knot and it doesn't untie. You say, untie. Nothing happens. Tie tighter. Nothing happens. Okay, you untie it again. Wrap yourself up in the 60-foot rope. Armor class 20. Big brain. What up, Vedinto? Welcome. So, you want to continue exploring this rope in case it has other properties that we don't know about yet, or do we want to go to sleep at this point? What do you guys think? I won't put it to a... What's the Elvish word for untie? Well, we don't speak Elvish. You can see down in our language there. You speak Common, Dwarvish, Sylvan, and Draconic. And so we don't know what the Elvish word for untie is. Burn it with fire. A lot of people just saying sleep time. We can always work out what it's schlafenate. Thank you, Mac. Can always trust you to schlafenate. So we're going to sleep. No worries. Spooning the rope. So we go to sleep. We aren't attacked in the night. We don't have any issues during the night. We have regular dreams, not one of these weird nightmares that we had the other night. We just have regular sort of dreams of nonsense and things that we've mostly forgotten by the morning. And as we wake up, we are not tied up by this rope. We've not been strangled to death in our sleep like a boa constrictor. Nobody has attacked us. We're not exactly sure what time it is, but it seems like birds are twittering outside when we wake. Where is Mel sleeping? That's a good question. I'd forgotten about Mel temporarily. So Mel is our companion bee, for anyone who doesn't know. If anybody's new here, we have a potbelly pig-sized giant bee, and she's our companion. She speaks Sylvan, so we can communicate with her. And she has been around town. Where would she have slept? I think she would have asked if there was any sort of flower fields nearby. And they said that yes, this particular community mostly thrives on hunting, not really a lot of cultivating agriculture, but they do have some flower fields nearby that are growing naturally, and so Mel goes off to sleep in those for the night. So Mel was sleeping in a field of flowers overnight. The next morning, you are woken, and you wake up, and the day is yours to do with what you wish. What do you guys want to do with your day? Just start putting some ideas in the chat, and if we're too disparate with our ideas, we might make it a poll or a single person's decision. Imagine her rolling in the flowers like it's catnip. Yeah, she's all cuddled up with her legs all curled on the inside, fetal position. What would you like to do with your day? Go back to the town. Yep. So we still have. So anyone who didn't know, we still have to eventually go back to Shadridge, which is the town where our acquaintance was found murdered, and we have to tell them what we found out. We need to get a job because we're kind of broke. We're not kind of broke, Verdinta. A single gold piece is a lot of money, and we have 35 gold pieces. We have a lot of money. Is there anything outstanding in the village now? Outstanding in this village, you mean? Like anything that they need? Talk to the elder about the rope. A couple of people have suggested that. Yeah, okay. So a few people are saying ask the elder about the rope. Felgun says, "Ask about the cloak. We haven't identified this cloak yet, and something about it is catching our eye." So we go to the we walk across to the door. We open it up, and it's first light. This is springtime, and so that it's getting light a little bit earlier, maybe about the equivalent of like 7 a.m. or something. So you look around town, you glance around. There's a couple of people milling about. You see the quiet elf that you hadn't got introduced to, that was speaking to Rodin last night. He's working outside a nearby shop. He seems to be doing something with stitching. He's got some leather, like really soft leather, that's hanging down over his lap, and he's got another bundled part up in his hand, and he seems to be very intently stitching something together. You can't see the elder around, so let's do an investigation check to see if we can find her and how long it'll take to find her. Investigation. 13. So 13 is not great, but it's not bad. It's right down the middle. So you walk over to this gentleman that you hadn't been introduced to last night. This elf gentleman. He's got darker sort of mottled brown skin with dark patches of brown on some. It's kind of like piebald skin, but in elven coloration of dark browns with some mixtures of green in there, wood elf style. And his hair is like a darker brown color, and it's tied back in a very tight ponytail. And he's handling this leather rather roughly and rather quickly. He's obviously doing something pretty quick and well practiced. And you say, "Excuse me," and he looks up and he nods at you. And you say, do you know where Sedan is?" And he goes, "Sedan." You say, "Yes, Sedan. Am I saying that right?" And he says, "Sedan." And he gives you sort of like general gist of directions, but it seems like he either doesn't want to speak common or doesn't speak common, but he understands the name, obviously, of his leader. And he points to that way, and you're like, okay, he's probably 2 doors down that way. So you sort of just gesture a thanks and continue walking. You go two doors, just 2 steps that way, and then turn around and ask him again. You go 2 doors down, you knock on the door, and you hear Saiden's voice say, "Rashad?" And you say, "It's just me." She says, "Oh, come in." And you walk in the door, and she's in there. She seems to be doing something with papers. She's got some parchment and a quill and ink. "Did you sleep well?" "Hey, I did, thank you. I was wanting to ask you about the rope." "Oh yes, did you learn anything about it?" "Well, I learnt that it mends itself." She says, "Yes, it does. It's very useful property. It's hard to cut, and if you do cut it, it'll mend itself back together, as long as it's not too destroyed. I don't expect it would recover from being burnt into ash or something like that. We've never tried it, but maybe don't put it in acid, or I don't know, expose it to stupid elements. But usual everyday wear and tear shouldn't affect it. It should make itself better." You say, "Well, that's very useful rope indeed. I really appreciate that you've chosen to give me that as for the very, very little that I did." She says, "It's all right." She says, "It's fine. It's the least we could do for your assistance, especially for keeping Verin alive when that owlbear attacked. We've lost enough hunters over the last few days. It's going to be a tough time in town. People are on edge a little bit and a little bit upset about having lost members of our community. So we're grateful for you being in the right place at the right time." "So did you learn anything else about it?" And you say, "Is there more?" "Oh, is that all you found out? That it heals itself?" "Yes. That's actually the least of its important aspects, I would say. Come with me." And she gets up and starts walking outside. And you follow her outside. And she walks over towards the. Let me just remind myself something real quick. Yeah, she walks over to where the storehouse was at the inside of the entrance to the town. And you can see that Roden is there with his hammer and nails, and he's getting to work fixing up the outside of this storehouse so that the meat that they store in there from the owlbear and the elk is not going to go to waste. And he's knocking stuff together, and she says, Roden? Eh? Lester for there and get out here. I crush the with gara apis. And he looks and says, Brasto thrangi. Lethra fos esteringesh, Lester fos galai. And he stands up very reluctantly and walks over to you. And she takes the rope. She hands a hand out for the rope, and you hand it over. And she says, unfortunately, the rope has been attuned to certain command words that are in Elvish. So unless you speak the language, you're going to have to put a little bit of time into learning the command words. But it can be very useful. And then, without warning, she turns and says, Frwing. And as she says, Frwing, the rope seems to spring to life, almost python-like, and then darts forward with a sudden flash, and it wraps around Roden, and it wraps his hands up, and he seems to... and he can breathe, but he's wrapped up and restrained. And then she says, Rithau. And as she says, Rithau, the rope drops off of him. And then she says, Nirwin. And as she holds the other end of it and it says Nirwin, the rope returns to her and coils itself back up again into a very usable coil. So, as you can see, it's rather interesting and useful. It can restrain a creature. I forgot to write down the details of that. Let me just double check something real quick. I want to know if there's obviously going to be a size limit on it. It can't restrain a titan or something. I think it's large or smaller. Let me check. It actually doesn't give a size restraint on it. That makes no sense, though. It should definitely not be able to restrain a Tarask or an ancient dragon. So I'm going to put a size restraint on it. I'm going to say, would huge make sense? If you're a 15-foot creature, let's do some quick maths. 15 foot. Maybe. Depends on the creature. But you can definitely restrain large or smaller. If you try to restrain something huge, then there's a chance. Gargantuan, definitely not. It's not going to restrain anything of the gargantuan or larger size. It's most likely not going to restrain anything of huge size, but it might, depending on circumstances. And it will be able to restrain something large or smaller. Roden wasn't fighting back. If you try to use it against an unwilling creature, they will get to make a saving throw to see if they can not get entangled by it. I'm just going to add that. Large or smaller. There we go. So a part of the brain, I saw somebody say, ask if it has a name. You say, is this actually alive then? And she says, sorry, that was Welsh. Is this thing actually like a living creature then? Feeling suddenly really upset about having hurt it several times, and she says, "No, it's definitely not alive. It's not conscious or anything. It's just a magic item that obeys commands." The actual Welsh words they are taken from Welsh words for the respective commands. Yes, the word restrain, the word release, and the word coil, respectively. And then she says. You say, this is incredible. This is going to be very useful. I thank you. I can't believe that you would give me a magic item this important. She says, you are once again anticipating too soon. We haven't finished showing you what it can do yet. She says, "Watch this," and she says, she looks up to the top of the storeroom, and I mentioned this, the storehouse being the largest one, the tallest of the buildings in town. And she looks up at the ceiling of it, and the rafters inside it, and she says, "Dring," and as she "Dringa," and as she says "Dringa," the top of the rope starts to just climb up on its own, snake charmer style. And the roof is about 30 feet high, and it seems to be ascending at a rate of about 10 feet every 6 seconds. Exactly 10 feet every 6 seconds. 10 feet per round. It gets up to the top of the rafters, and then she says, "Kulwum, kulwum." And as she says "kulwum," the rope wraps itself around the rafter up there, and it tightens itself into a knot, and it is secured. It can fasten itself onto something. Your eyes go wide, and you start to go, "That's so it can just climb. I can just climb up things." And she said, "Not yet." And then she says, "Reidigswin, Reidigswin." And as she says "Reidigswin," about every foot and a half of the rope shortens to about every foot, because half of the rope starts to knot itself into a large ball knot, and every foot interval there is a knot that gives you advantage on athletics checks to climb the rope. It does decrease the rope by 10 feet as it does so. It decreases the rope by 10 feet. It becomes a 50-foot rope at that point, but it is knotted at every foot along it. So it is a rope of climbing, a rope of entanglement, and a rope of mending, all melded into one. So there you go. And it has 6 commands: the word for climb, the word for knot, the word for secure, and the word for restrain, the word for release, and the word for coil. And given enough time, you can just learn them. I won't expect everyone in the chat to actually remember these Welsh words. But you can. It's a rope of kick-ass. Yeah, it's basically, I've called it a rope of commanding. You can command it to do things, but it does take your action to command it. It takes your action to command it to do the restrain ability. It takes a bonus action to command it to do all the other stuff. It's an awesome rope she's giving us. Yeah, she's very happy with how you've helped out. So that's the. She says that's the extent of what it can do. Not only climbing though, the climb command, it goes in whatever direction you point it, basically. So if you want it to climb upwards, it climb upwards. She releases it. So she gives the Ritau command, and it releases itself and drops back down. And then she points it out across, like 50 foot across the road there. And says "Dringa," and she points it in that direction, and it just takes off in a horizontal direction across the way. So you can also pass across like a canyon if you need to tie it to the other side of things. It's unique in the sense that I made it up. Like I just merged 3 magic items together. But it's, in terms of its rarity, it would probably be a rare item. Seems like a great deal for an Elkin and Owlbear. They were pleased with how you've helped them out, and she wanted to show signs of thank you for it. And she may expect more of you in future. It's a good way to get on your good side, being that you're a very proficient hunter in the area. Ask if the elves require any more assistance, and if we could establish a friendship between the elves and our people before heading out. As in, can I research it on D&D Beyond? Yeah, I've just told you the 3 items that it's made: rope of entanglement, rope of climbing, and rope of mending. Those are the 3 magic items as written. Take each of their qualities, make it 60 foot long, make it made of silk, and that's it. Can we ask if she has a magic potato? You say, is there anything else I can do for you? Because this seems like much too much for what I've done for you. I feel like I haven't done anything. I just went on one hunt." And she says, "Well, it's I'm glad that you brought that up. I would feel more comfortable if you did help Verin today before heading out. You see, we had a discussion after you went to sleep last night. Not about you. We were just talking as a town, and we discussed how the ogre and the goblins were not taken care of when they came through this town. They caught us off guard, and they murdered some of our people. And they're still out there. And what's more is they headed in a general northward direction. And there are 3 other elven towns, our sister towns, that are around here. And we want to head out and warn them in case they're in the area, in case we can get to them before the ogre does, or if the ogre's even going that direction, we don't know. We don't really know where it came from. But Verin was going to head out today to try and visit one of the towns and start to spread the word, and I don't feel comfortable with him travelling alone. Normally I would have sent...
With a nat 20 on my perception check,
friends.
I see you following me.
Thank you, Zocking Extreme. Normally I would have sent him with people, but the people I would have sent him with are being buried today, so if you could perhaps go with him, that could help us a lot. I'm not saying you have to put yourself in the way of an ogre. I wouldn't ask that danger of you. But I'm not sure. I'm not saying that the ogre won't be where you are going as well. So I'm not sure. Penny's just popping in and it's confusing. So you absolutely, unless there's any objection from anyone in the chat, most people are saying absolutely. Let's go with Verin. We did tell her about the goblin camp, yes. Actually, no, we didn't. We didn't tell her about the goblin camp. We chose to kind of keep a little. We kept a little bit coy about the details of why we knew goblins were in the area. We just kind of made it sound like they attacked us. We didn't actually tell her about the goblin camp. So it kind of makes sense that at this point we tell her that. Good point, Wraith. It does say in our character description that we do like to help whenever we can, so we absolutely will do so. At this point, they've earned our trust enough, especially Sathan. She's earned our trust that we can tell her about their goblin camp. We say, hey, I should explain as well. I think I might know where the ogre actually came from or was going to. I didn't say all of this originally because I wasn't exactly sure how much I could trust you. I was getting a lot of, not you specifically, I mean all of you. She says, I understand. There was a goblin camp nearby that I scouted out. I managed to dispatch of several of them after they attacked me. And there was a large tent with a large mound of hay in it that seemed to have been slept in by something big. I didn't know what it was at the time, but it seems like it might well have been the ogre. She tells you, there are 3 elven villages in the area to the north. So to sort of the northeast-ish area, there is a village called Dolbin Iluath. Dolbin Iluath is, she says, it's an area where they cultivate a particular type of flower called the Prin flowers. The Prin flowers are useful in potions and potion brewing and making concoctions. The Prin flowers they only bloom at full moon, she says. So they're quite hard to cultivate, quite hard to grow. But Dolbin Iluath makes their trade from doing that. Aruchel is the village to the north. That is a treetop settlement. They are astrologers and diviners by nature. They spend a lot of their days looking at the stars in the heavens and divining the future from that. They're very secular people, not very welcoming to outsiders, even other elves. And then she says there's the Mwyn Glofau. The Mwyn Glofau is a cave settlement, a settlement of drow, dark elves. They live in a cave. They make their living doing mining, and they are quite welcoming to outsiders, apparently. And so we have the option of which one of those three we wanted to go to warn them. We make a choice. I have already, prior to the stream, I have already made a decision as to if the ogre has gone to attack one of them, or whether it's gone to back to the camp or elsewhere. I already made that decision. And if it was going to make the attack on one of the villages, I would have already decided which of the villages it's going to as well. So it's up to you which one to go and warn as well, with Verin in tow. Hey, Periwinkle Pitbull, welcome. Can we set the hay on fire at night? It seems a bit dark for Apis from what I've seen. So Apis is a dwarf, and as one of their features, you can see down there, it says features dark vision. So we can actually see in the dark as a dwarf, so it's not too dark. They're all somewhat equidistant from us. Can the ogre climb or uproot trees? We've never met an ogre ourselves, and so we don't know if they can uproot trees or climb. They probably can uproot trees because they're very strong and dangerous. They're all about equidistant from us, yeah. Oh, it seems a bit dark, like content-wise, to burn the ogre while he sleeps. We could potentially go back to the goblin camp, find where the ogre sleeps, wait for him to return, and then set him on fire during the night. That is an option. We could try and track the ogre. We've got pretty damn good survival, especially in a forest situation. We could try and track the ogre to see which direction he went. We could have Mel split up, warn someone. We could send Mel to one, we could go to another, and Verin could go to the third. So obviously at that situation, we're splitting the party in case one of us does come across the ogre, then we're like one on however many there are. But the benefit is all three of them get warned in advance. All right, so we've got a lot of different options here. A lot of people, however, are saying track the ogre, so I think that makes the most sense as the way that Apis goes. The many people the many voices and options that are running through Apis's mind. Most of them are saying we should just try and track the ogre, see where they've gone. All right, so that's what we're gonna do. So she says, Verin is just down the main street and just hunting at the moment. Sorry, not just hunting, just feeding, just having breakfast at the moment. So I'll leave it to you to decide which of the villages you warn. They're all in equal need of being warned, but you the two of you can decide where to take it. And you say, I'll go and talk to him now. And you head outside. You head back to roughly where the bonfire area was, where the feast was set up. The bonfire's been extinguished, but the pit is still laid out, like it's a permanent fire pit apparently. The tables that were laid out for the feast have been taken away now. Excuse me. But you do see Verin sitting down with a plate on his knee, eating something that would pass as breakfast. And so you have you wander over to Verin, and he says, good morning, I suppose. How did you sleep well? Is that? And you gesture, you nod, and you tell him about what just happened with Sathan and the rope and stuff. And he says, yes, wonderful. That's wonderful news. That should be coming very useful for you. What are you doing today then? And he said, well, actually, I'm coming with you, pal. I hear we're going north to one of the villages. And he says, oh, are you coming along for the journey? Wonderful. It would be very nice to have you. I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit apprehensive about how long it would take me, because if I was going alone, I would have to move at quite a stealthy pace, and I'm not sure how many of them I'd be able to warn. It's already been nearly 2 days now since the ogre attacked us, so it's I don't anticipate us getting there before the ogre gets there, but if you're coming, that's opens up some more options for us. Do we want to go at a stealthy pace, or do we want to go at quite a fast pace? Fast means that we'll be able to get there not long after the ogre does, if indeed the ogre goes to those villages. but stealthy means that we might get the drop on the ogre and would be easier to track along the way as well. So those are that is the first option for us that I'm going to do as a poll. I'm going to do as a poll, if you're going to do this, thank you. The pace of travel. Slow. Advantage on survival. Advantage on tracking, I'll say. It doesn't want all of those words, so I'll have to advantage on tracking. There we go. More likely to catch. There we go. All right. So I'll give us 3 minutes to decide on this one. The decision to be made is: do we want to travel at a slow pace, a medium pace, or a fast pace? If you travel at a slow pace, the advantage is that you will have advantage on both. You'll have advantage on your survival checks to track the ogre in the first place, so you're more likely to be able to tell where the ogre's gone. And you'll also be able to make a stealth check before you arrive at the thing, because you'll be moving slowly through the forest and not leaving your own tracks. So the advantage of going at a slow pace is you'll be able to track the ogre more efficiently, and you'll be able to stealth up on the ogre when you get to them. The downside to that is that you're giving the ogre more time to make some headway on you, and might even get to the villagers before you do. If indeed I've decided that that's where the ogre's going. You can go to a medium pace, which is no advantages or disadvantages per se. Or you can go to fast pace, which is that you have disadvantage on your survival checks to track the ogre, because you're moving through the forest quite quickly, so you might lose the tracks. And you might end up at a village that you're not, like, the ogre's not going to. But the advantage is you can get there in time to warn them before the ogre does, kind of thing. Perhaps. Potentially. So it's all to be taken into account. Do you want to move at a slow, fast, or medium pace? There's advantages and disadvantages to fast and slow paces. It could be fully gorged up and resting, yeah. You don't know if the ogre is even going towards one of those villages at the moment. It might have gone back to the camp. It might have gone to the villages. You're not sure. Gallop at full pace, yelling about the light in the tower. Paul Revere. I don't know that quote. Periwinkle Bull, sorry. Fast, time is against us, perhaps. 2 days behind. Probably not much point stealthing. Fast as possible. Erring on stealth. You don't want others to get overly hurt. Keeping Verin alive. Ride like the wind, bullseye. How big is the ogre? Do we have any sort of idea? You know that ogres from fairy tales and things tend to be over 10 feet tall. Let's while we do this vote, let's make a nature check, see how much we've heard about ogres. See if I can narrow that. See if I can narrow that down for you. 16. With a 16, yeah, you've heard tales of ogres being over 10 feet tall, but they're never usually described as being giants. They're not like they're not anything over like 18 feet tall. Somewhere between 10 and 18 feet. And don't leave Mel behind. Yeah, Mel will come with us. Are we separate or together? We are together. It's me. It's us, Verin, and Mel. All right. So not much in it. I suppose there is actually. So not many people said slow. A few people said medium, but the majority of people, 54%, said that we're going to move at a fast pace, which will give us disadvantage on our survival check to track him. But we're going to go in the general direction and hope we end up at the right village. Tortilla kind of dropped into the story. Are we expecting to be convincing to the other villagers? Oh, do we have any proof of the danger of the ogres? Yeah, they've not given us any reason to believe that the villagers will need convincing. These guys are sister villages. They're all kind of outposts of the same settlement, I suppose. They're all four sister villages that are in the same area of the forest. And so Varian will be able to confirm everything for us. All right, so we're going to move at a fast pace. The next poll to be done then is, in case we do lose the tracks, which general direction are we going to go? Are we? Oh, let me start a poll. Which village? So, if we can keep a hold of the tracks, if we roll well enough on survival, even with disadvantage, then we'll be able to track the ogre and just follow the ogre where it goes. But in case we lose the tracks, which village should we head for? Should we head for the Drow village? Should we head for the astronomers village? Astronomers. Or should we head for the flower farmers? So there is a village of Drow miners who are said to be quite welcoming. There is a village of astronomer wood elves that live up in the trees in tree huts on stilts, and they are said to be quite unwelcoming. And then there is a village of wood elf farmers who farm a particular flower that only blooms once every full moon and is really good for potions. So you've got 2 minutes to decide which of those villages should we head for, should we lose the tracks. Is the flower blooming by chance? I'm pretty sure that we are coming up to. We are probably at a waxing half moon, around about now. It is a new moon at the start of every month, and I'm pretty sure when I started out this, in fact I can check my notes here, go right back to the start of my notes. If it's the first month of spring, and we put it at like the end of the first week of the first month of spring, then we're about a week away from full moon. All right, so if we lose the tracks and we have to just make a decision because we don't know which way the troll's gone, the ogre rather. Which village should we head for? Sparrow, there's no way of getting around if we lose the tracks. We try and find the tracks again. That's not going to work. If we lose the tracks, we've lost the tracks. So we need to decide at that point which way we're going to go. All three villages are pretty much equidistant from us, Marie. None of them are more or less likely to be under threat. I suppose the treetop village is slightly less likely to be under threat from an ogre, but there are ways of still damaging the trees and things. Exactly, Wraith. He could be going back to the camp. Yeah. So we are on the southern hemisphere of my world, but we use the northern hemisphere seasons. So it is effectively all right. So very close. Very close. So nobody really wants to go to the treetop astronomers because they're kind of racist, I guess, and maybe because they're up in the trees, and so maybe they're a little bit more safe from that. But it was relatively close between the Drow village and the flower farmers. But eked out with 52% of the vote, we decide to, if we lose the tracks, we will go towards the flower farming village. All right. So with that decided, we decide to head out. We are on the outskirts of town when we suddenly remember Mel. Where the hell's Mel? And we ask Verin, have you seen my bee around? And he says, yes. He was suddenly French. Welsh, musical, dragon, is it? He says, yes, she's just actually on the way. There's a field up here, just a bit of a clearing with flowers in it, and I think she went to sleep in that. And as you start to walk that way, meeting you coming the other way is the sound of a... And you see it coming and sort of wave it down. Hey, good morning, Apis. What is the plan for the day? And you briefly give her a recap of what the plan is for the day and where you're going. You said, we're going to be tracking this ogre.
Oh, very well. Let us go, I suppose.
And so you set off at quite a fast pace, the three of you heading out together. So if we can keep the tracks, that will be for the best, because we'll just be able to go in the direction it is going. But I'm going to roll a survival check, and I'm going to roll it again and take the lower of the two numbers, because that's what disadvantage means. So the first survival is an 18. Not bad. It's actually a 20 because we're in a forest and we're a ranger, and so we get to add +2 to our things because of the forest situation. Mr. Ganjamain, forest doesn't give us advantage, it just adds our proficiency bonus. So that's a dirty 20, or a dirty 20 again. There you go, look. Disadvantage gives us the same number twice.
Be our guest.
So we and she, between us, and Verin as well, between the three of us, we managed to move at quite a fast pace. A 1 in 400 chance of the same number twice, that's right. Well, actually, it's just a 1 in 20 chance of the same number twice, unless you actually allocate ahead of time which number is going to be. Because the first roll is guaranteed to roll something, and then there's only a 1 in 20 chance that the second roll is that same number. So it's not that uncommon to get double numbers. You set off together. You can see the signs to the north edge of the village of the ogre's tracks pretty easily, pretty quickly. As you say that, Rafe. As we set off, we can tell as we walk through like there's a, what's the word? I'm losing all words. There's like a stream, a brook that we cross over. And on the other side of that, there's kind of like more muddy soil, because obviously it's much more wet on the side of the streams. And so the tracks become much clearer for a second or two, for a few yards. And you can quickly tell, you stop for just a moment to sort of assess the tracks. You can see some very large footprints of an ogre. And from its stride, let's make an intelligence check. See if we can do a Sherlock Holmes here and work out how tall it is by the length of its stride. Let's just do a straight up intelligence check. 7. Now, we're not smart enough to sort of measure the length of the stride to work out the ogre's height, but hey, there's ogre footprints. There's some definite wolf footprints in this mud, seemingly only one, and a few more smaller footprints, booted footprints that seem to be goblin-like. And so the ogre's not alone. He's with at least one wolf and some goblins. The heading north continue. You still continue to the north. You're moving at quite a pace, stopping every so often to check for tracks. The tracks disappear for a couple of times, but you manage to regain them. Backtrack just a little bit to regain them and find where twigs are broken and things. Eventually, you see that they're heading off kind of to the northeast-ish, making their way through the forest. Actually, no. Since you're tracking them, the tracks would head towards the west. They sort of turn, after heading north, they start to turn northwest, and they continue to head west. We track them for about 2 hours. Can we tell how far behind them we are? With a dirty 20, yes, you can actually tell. In fact, what's that ranger ability? Let me just pause for a second. When traveling for an hour or more in your favored terrain, you gain the following benefits, and we have been traveling for an hour or more. Difficult terrain won't slow our group's travel, so we won't be slowed by difficult terrain in the forest. The group cannot become lost except by magical means. That's good. Even when we're engaged in another activity while traveling, such as foraging, navigating, and tracking, you remain alert to danger. So we can't be surprised because of the fact that we're spending a lot of time on tracking. If you're traveling alone, you can move stealthy at a normal pace. That's good to keep in mind for future guys when we're not traveling with Verin. And because the bee doesn't count as a proper person, we can still travel with her and still be counting as traveling alone. So when we're traveling alone, we can move at a stealthy but at a normal pace. When foraging, you find twice as much food as you normally would. and this is the important one, when tracking other creatures, you learn their exact number, their sizes, and how long ago they passed through the area. Bloody brilliant. Ranger. Ranger abilities, yo. So, and people say rangers are underpowered. Varen is... Yes, technically Varen is a ranger as well. So we after an hour of traveling, we gain that ability. So after an hour of tracking them and things, Varen and you start to confer as you move about the about all the different hints that you're picking up along the way, and you point out that branch has definitely been broken recently. And he looks up. It has. And he sort of quickly like jumps up and sees if he can touch it, and by doing so, he's like, that's more than 10 feet high. So this ogre's a big beast. It's either it's reached up and snapped it on its way past, and it's got a more than 10 feet reach, but it's definitely broken it at more than 10 feet high. A few minutes later, you walk past and you see the tracks spread out to go around a particular sort of like puddle in the middle of the path. The ogre footprint just takes a stride over it, and from that the two of you kind of confer and say this ogre's probably around 12 feet high. Because the other footprints peel off from behind the ogre as it steps over the puddle, they go around it. It gives you a better chance of working out the numbers, and you realize that there are at least let me check. How many did I actually put in the fight? The fight with the village you just left they attacked with four goblins. So you work out that there are 4 goblins, and from the wolf tracks you notice that there's one wolf, and it is heavy tracks. It's quite deep tracks in the mud, and so you realize it's mounted as well. So there was a mounted wolf, 4 goblins, and an ogre. So 5 goblins included the one that's on the wolf. So you learn all of that stuff after about an hour of tracking. You continue walking. Gulp. You continue walking for another hour or so, and eventually after 3 hours, of total walking, you arrive back at the camp that you left originally the other day. You realise that the ogre had left after the raid and gone back to this camp. 5 goblins, a wolf, and a 12-foot ogre. That's right. Can we use the rope to measure how tall it is with the knots every foot along it? You could potentially measure things out with that. No village raids. Phew. So you arrive at the outskirts of this clearing that had this camp at the base of it, and you crest over. You can tell that the ogre had gone back into the camp, and as you crest over the top, you see that the tents are destroyed. They've been torn down and smashed up. Most of them, anyway. There's a few that are still standing. A few tents that are still standing, but for the most part, the camp has been somewhat destroyed. We can go back and collect our old rope if we want. So at this stage, I'm gonna put it to an actual vote, like one of the usual votes. One person will get a chance to decide what Apis does now. You can type into the chat !camp, no space, !camp, C-A-M-P, because we are at the goblin camp. This part of the brain finds a bush to collect leaves and tea brewing for later. Well, we've tracked the ogre. Might as well just collect some tea. Did Apis perception the area? Not yet. We've just arrived back at the goblin camp that we have already raided and looted, to find that the ogre returned here about a day ago. We are at the goblin camp, and you are deciding what to do. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Zaza. It is Marie Tamagotchi. Alright, Marie has questions first. Whereabouts in the camp are we? We are on the eastern edge of the camp. So we came in from the west before. We're coming in from the east this time. approaching from the same side as we did before, from the direct opposite side as we did before. How far away are we? We definitely need to go into stealth mode, but are we already at risk of being spotted? Potentially. We are not that close. We are probably 300 yards away. We are close enough to see the details of the tents. How tall are the trees around us? Regular-sized forest trees. They're not like massive, not massive redwoods or anything. They're just like oak tree size, I guess. Mel can definitely fly up and scout if we wanted to. Yeah. Do we need to stealth if we're still a day behind and the camp is destroyed? There are some tents that are still standing in the camp, Sparrow Flyway, but some tents that are destroyed. All right, so Marie says we're going to gesture to Verin to duck into cover just in case. And we're going to ask Mel to fly high over the camp to see whether the camp is definitely empty. And if it is, I would urge caution nevertheless. We don't want anything to get the drop on us. And we look for tracks again. All right. So we're going to send Mel to do some scouting from high above. So you give some sort of ranger-like commands. And the two of you back away from the camp, out of sight. And you say, right, this is the plan. And then Mel goes,
all right, I'm on board. I will return as soon as I see one thing or another.
Up into the sky. You guys, the two of you split up a little bit and crawl to separate edges and sort of get down on your bellies and watch over the top of this hill. And Mel takes to the sky and you can very faintly hear her above you, but she's so far above you that you can barely hear it. She scouts around. She takes like 10 minutes or so of like scouting around, and then she starts to lower down. You can see her getting a little lower. You start to get a little bit nervous about how low she's getting. I'm going to roll a perception check to see for her if she can see things. All right. She starts to get a little lower, and you're like, what if there's something there? And you get an arrow out and you get it ready just in case anything does shoot at her. But nothing does. She circles lower and lower. She's now on your level, only like another 40, 50 feet above the camp. If there is something in the camp, they'd probably be able to hear her right now. But nothing comes out of the tents. You're watching. At one point, she just drops straight down, and she just lands on one of the larger tents that's still up. And she starts to pace along on top of it. And she's like buzzing her wings. Nothing seems to stir. She bzzz down, and she's now at like ground level, effectively buzzing around between the tents. Nothing's coming out of the tents. And then she buzzes back to the large tent, buzzes around the front of it a minute or two, and then flies back to you.
No signs of any movement. I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. The tent is closed up, so I couldn't really push in without it hurting my wings. But I did not hear. I could not coax anyone out of the tent with my wings noises. So I do not know.
Is that one of the languages we know? But B Morse code. No, we could learn it with some downtime. We could learn some sort of long distance communication with Mel if we put some time into our downtime. But that's not something we know yet. So it seems like the tent is either abandoned, or they're in their tents and sleeping maybe, or maybe they're in their tents and just not paying attention to the outsides, or they're restrained or deaf, whatever reason, then they're not out and about. So Marie, we'll leave it still to you. It's still sort of your decision, I suppose, at this stage. What do you reckon we would do at this stage once we've learned what we've learnt? Is Mel part French? Gus asks. Well, Mel speaks a language called Sylvan. Sylvan is a language of giant animals, and it is a language that more animals are likely to understand than common. They don't necessarily speak it, but if you speak to an animal in common and you say the same thing in Sylvan, they're more likely to understand your meaning if you say it in Sylvan. It is also a language of the fey creatures, so like things like sprites and fairies and that sort of stuff. They will speak Sylvan. And Sylvan in my world, because it's a language of the fairies, it's very flowing and beautiful, and so I based it on French. So when she's speaking to us in Sylvan, it's with a French accent. Micro semaphore for the win. What's a micro semaphore, Totier? Do you guys blue book in your non-YouTube games? I don't know what blue book means, Ratslinger. What do you mean? All right, Maria says we head carefully into the camp, stay alert, of course, and investigate as best we can why the camp is destroyed, where the goblins and ogre party went, and the fate of the 3 wolves that we freed before. All right, so what we're going to do is... Semaphore are flags used in... yeah, semaphore. I knew it somehow. Micro semaphore. Yeah, I knew the word semaphore. It's the flags to signal stuff. Not so micro. She's the size of a potbelly pig, remember? So let's do an investigation check, and because there are 3 of us all investigating, I will give us advantage on it. Investigation check. That's a 20. That's a nat 20 plus 3. We literally can't do any better even with advantage. So 23 investigation. I'll tell us everything we need to know about it. What we learn is So she spent about half an hour scouting and buzzing around and everything. We spend another half hour investigating in person. We push open the tents. We go into the large... There's only one of the large 2 tents that were huge. There's only one left standing. It's the ogre's tent. You walk inside. You check the hay. It's cold on the top, but you dig your hand down underneath it, like 6 inches or something. It's slightly moist, which is not... it doesn't feel good to stick your hand into it. You're not sure why it's slightly moist, from back sweat or maybe urine or something. I don't know. But it's also slightly warm as well. So you gather from that, with a nat 20 investigation, you gather from that the ogre slept here last night. You walk back out of the tent like... Did I need to learn that much for that much? And wash your hand off in a nearby stream or something. Just wipe your hand in the mud. You wander around, you see that there's no sign of the wolves that were here, no sign of wolf bones, so they haven't been smashed and eaten or anything like that. They probably just left the forest. You could search for wolves in the surrounding forest to see where they went, but there's no sign of them here. The tents that are smashed are the big goblin boss tent. That one's gone. The smaller tents that were like the commanders. There is one commander tent left available that left up, and a few other... 2 other tents, 2 other small tents. And you gather from that the only tents that are left standing are the tents of the people who came here last night to sleep, and the other ones were smashed for whatever reason. The food stores is still standing, the food storage tent. And the food storage tent actually has food in it, quite a significant amount of dried food that you think is probably a lot of the loot that they took from the elven village that they just raided. So yes, as one part of your mind says, Gus, it sounds like when they arrived to the camp to realize that all of their friends were dead, they might have been pretty angry, and the ogre might have taken out his anger in the only way that ogres know how. Is there any tea? No tea, Tezza. No tea. Not so much with the tea here. If you go to the elven camp that grows flowers and cultivates them, they might cultivate some tea for you. But they didn't raid any tea from the hunting village. So, what else did you say that we're gonna search for? Let me just double check. It hasn't come up there, so let me scroll back up. What did Marie say? Carefully into the village, we stayed alert. We investigated as best we could. We learnt why the camp was destroyed. The fate of the 3 wolves, we don't really know, but they just doesn't seem to have been here. And then with a nat 20, with a 23, I won't ask for another check of any sorts. We find a crate of potatoes. Yeah, found a crate of potatoes. We find further tracks that lead back east, a little bit north of where we came in. Maybe 100 yards north of where we came in, there are tracks leading east again. So they seemed to have come back to the camp with their ill-gotten goods. They slept here the night, and then they have set out again this morning. And they've left a lot of their ill-gotten goods here, so they probably intend on returning at some point. So we know the tracks that lead out. We know that they probably intend on returning to this camp at some point. What is it that we should do now, guys? I'll just ask you in a general sense, and you guys tell me in the chat, what do you think we should do? Should we stay here and set some sort of ambush or trap for them to return tonight? Or should we burn down their tents now so that they've got nowhere to come back to? Should we take the food that they stole and take it back to the village we just came from? Or should we follow the tracks and go to try and find out where the ogre is now? They will head for a village. They might, but they might not know where a village is, so they might be wandering for a while looking for a village. Could follow the tracks, take the food and follow the tracks, set the tents on fire and then track them. Loot and pillage. Track as they go. Might sack another village. They might sack another village if we don't do something about it now. Take the food, remove the food, stash it nearby, then burn the camp. Okay. It's a lot of... it's probably too late to catch up then if they left this morning. And it's probably... It's midday about now. It's just after midday. Alright, so let's... we should sack the village so that they can't. Modern problems require modern solutions. They can't sack a village if there's no village to be sacked. Big brain. Set the tent on fire and wait here in stealth mode. Alright, so there's quite a few people deliberating what to do about either destroying this one or not. So let's put this to a poll then, since we're being Apis' usual sense of disparate mind and indecisive nature. What to do now? Follow tracks immediately. So the benefit of following the tracks immediately is that you're more likely to be able to catch up to them because it's been probably only a matter of hours since they left. Stash food first. Stash food elsewhere. So stash the food that they stole elsewhere first. The benefit of that, the downside is that obviously you're giving them time to get away. But the benefit is that if you don't happen to come across them and defeat them, then they can't come back to the food that they stole before, and they're screwed, and they might starve or what have you. Destroy their camp. So we could spend some time to destroy the camp, take the tents down, burn it, whatever we want to do. The benefit of that is obviously when they come back, they can't get a night's rest as easily. Or what else is there? So just stash the food, destroy the camp, follow the tracks. Am I forgetting anything? I think that'll do it. I think that'll be a good enough decision to make. So I'll give you 2 minutes to decide on this poll. The poll starts now. Those are the three sort of options that we've got. We can go straight after them to try and catch up to them. We can first try and stash the food, or we can destroy the tent. Obviously, if we take time to destroy the camp, we've also got to then stash the food. Otherwise, we just leave this food here to spoil. I think follow the tracks. We could wait and set a trap here, but that'll take a while and risk the lives of others. Yeah, that's a consideration. Can we catch up, potentially, if we move fast? Since they're coming back, removing stash, blah blah blah. Stashing the food is a good move. I don't think peace was ever an option as far as these goblins are concerned. We could try a peaceful option, but we have to first get to them and for that to even be an option. burn the camp and the food with it. Sparrow's just like, fuck the elves. they don't need this food back. I just caught them an owlbear. They don't need food. Burn it all to the ground and stand here and laugh. Ignore it. Keep tracking. Take the tents. Remember, we don't have a bag of holding, Ratslinger, so we can't just take everything we want. It's not a video game. We've got a weight limit. That's why I actually have started to, with the inventory below me, I've started to actually make the different sizes of things so that you can see this hunting trap takes up quite a lot of our inventory space, as does the longbow. So like having a longbow and a hunting trap and carrying those around everywhere we go, it's pretty cumbersome. It's going to take up a lot of our inventory space. We don't have a lot of space for several days worth of rations and things. All right, so we did not get a majority this time. You were all a little bit... Only 4 people voted for destroy the camp, so we're not going to take the time to destroy the camp. 9 of the remaining 20 voted for stash the food elsewhere, and 11 of the remaining 20 voted for follow the tracks immediately. So unfortunately, for the people who wanted to stash the food, Apis decides in the moment we can't let them get ahead of us. We can't let them get too far away of us by spending 10, 20, 30 minutes taking all of the food out of their food storage and stashing it, finding somewhere safe to stash it in the woods where it's not going to get eaten by animals and things. It'll take too much time. We can't afford them to get to a village and kill people in the time that we're stashing food. If we get there and defeat the goblins and the ogres, then we can always come back and get the food at that point. For now, the food is safe. We know where it is. Let's just go. Boom. So we decide to follow them. All right. So I can assume... How many rations do we currently have? I think we've got like 6 rations or something. I think it's on the D&D Beyond sheet. I haven't had to tick any off in a few days because we got fed by the elves. So I think we're fine for rations ourselves. So we what was I going to say? We are going to track the ogre, and I'm assuming that we're going to do it at a fast pace again, because the whole point is that we're trying to be speedy and catch up to them. So I'm going to do a survival check with disadvantage from us traveling fast. The survival check is a 15, or with disadvantage, that would be a 10, plus our ranger bonus of +2 because we're in a forest. So we're moving at a fast pace. We've got a 12 on our survival check to track them. It does not seem like they are. Particularly trying to move at a stealthy pace through the forest themselves. They're just moving at a regular pace, it seems. From the tracks, you can track them relatively easily. I'm just going to roll to see if a 12 will be enough to be able to not lose them. All right. So about an hour of tracking them. After about an hour of tracking them, you're pretty sure you've lost the track now. You've lost the trail. It's gone cold. You've gone. At this point, you can choose to make a path of whether to go directly north to the nearest elf village, which is the Drow. You can go to the next nearest village, which would be the astronomers, or you can go to the further village, which is the flower farmers. I'll make this a poll because we're definitely going to be undecided on what we do at this point. We've lost the tracks, unfortunately. We can spend time going backtracking and trying to regain the tracks, which will give them time to get ahead of us, but it also allows us to potentially remake those survival checks. So poll, where to now? Oops, no, poll like so. Did I see a Spidey in the chat? What up, Spidey? I need to tell you, Spidey, this 50-foot rope, can I get one that is titled 60-foot magic rope or something, or just 60-foot? I'll just just put magic rope, because I'll remember that it's a 60-foot rope. Could I do that? Could I get that, please? That'd be fantastic. Where to now? Drow, brackets, closest. let's just say treetop village, or farmers furthest. And then the fourth option is backtrack. You've got only Apis is pretty in the moment, having to decide what to do. So you've only got 1 minute starting now. You've got 1 minute to decide. Are we going to go to the Drow village, which we know to be, well, Verin knows to be pretty close to here? Do we want to go to the Astronomer village, which is the next nearest village? Do we want to go to the Farmer village, which is the further one away? Or do we want to backtrack and try and find the tracks again and then see where they lead? Self-tying rope. It is a self-tying rope, Spidey. Yeah, they investigated it overnight. They learned that it is a rope of entanglement, a rope of climbing, and a rope of mending, all rolled into one. It's a pretty useful rope. It will mend itself if cut, which is pretty useful. Can we cut out one of the towns this far in tracking? No. So, Mr. Gangermain, we've gone. Let me get this right from your perspective. So we have gone to the west. That's east in your perspective, isn't it? So we came out of the southern village. We turned to the west and went over here to the Goblin camp, and now we've travelled it back east again, and we are roughly south of the Drow village. We're not quite south yet of the. It's hard to do it from a mirrored perspective. We're not quite south of the Astronomer village, and we're sort of directly east of the other village, the Farmer village. Backtrack to the camp. Well, that is basically what I mean, Marie. We would, if we choose the backtrack option, we have to go back to until we can re-find the trail and then make survival checks again from there. All right, so with 74% of the vote, we decide, sod it, we'll just go to the Drow camp. They're the closest ones, and if they're under attack, we need to help them out. And if not, then we can move on from there. Not as contentious as I thought, yeah. So we move at a pretty quick pace. Thank you, Tezza, for popping by. Appreciate it. You got to DM your own game now. Exciting. Hopefully this has been some inspiration for you. A rope of awesome. So we say, I can't find the trail. We haven't seen the trail in like 10 minutes now. And Verin says, yes, I'm afraid I'm loath to agree with you there. I want to agree with you. I thought we'd come by it again. They must have turned off or something. I can't. Listen, there's. What do you want to do? There's an elf village just north of here, a village of Drow, called. Where is it? Where did I write it? Minglofau is just to the north of here. Aruchel is a little bit further east, and Dolbin Iluad is much further east of here. I'm not sure which of them they would have attacked, if any. But I say we just go to the Drow, the closest ones. And you say, let's just head anywhere where we can, at the very least, warn them of what's in the area. So you turn off, you head north to the Drow. It's probably about 20 minutes of walking from where you are. So you arrive, and as you're arriving, they were the same spelling as before, Marie. I gave you those three titles, three towns before. I've said them out loud at least. Anyway, I haven't told you how they're spelt yet. Our other companion that's with us, Chuckler, is an elf called Verin, who is from Helwerin. Helwerin was the elven village that we were first at in this campaign. And he's coming with us to warn the other elves of the goblins in the area. So we set off. We get after about 20 minutes, we start to arrive towards like a bit of a mountain that's sticking out in this forest. It's not a huge mountain. It's heavily wooded and grassed all the way up. But it's not like a snowy capped mountain or anything. It's not nearly that big. So we we start approaching this mountainside, and you can see that there's a bit of a cave that Varen points out. The drow live just in that cave up there, so there's a bit of a climb, but not a lot. It's just a bit of a hike. So you take 10 minutes to sort of hike up the foothill of this mountain until you start to approach this tent. And then he gets out an arrow, and he says, "You don't happen to have fire abilities, do you?" And he said, "No, I'm afraid not." And so he goes, "All right, well, hopefully I can just hit it then." And he takes an arrow, aims it, and he aims and fires, and he looses it. Let's see if he does hit it. Where did I put my D20? There it is. Hey, nat 20. Perfect timing. Yeah, he hits it just right. He flings it along, and you see that it from the angle that you're on, the cave mouth looks about this because you're coming at it from the side. And it shoots, and it goes inside the cave mouth, and it hits inside and shatters across the wall. And less than 20 seconds later, there's 4 drow, all with crossbows, that come to the front and start all aiming in different directions, heavy crossbows. And he puts his hands up and says in Elvish, "Apis and Verin and Mel, Helgwaren, Lathruf." And they put their bows down and gesture, and they start to walk up the mountain closer to the cave. You arrive, and you see the drow. So this is your first time ever actually meeting drow. So these are elven, very much elven in appearance. They're very beautiful, very flawless skin. You're yet to see an elf with a scar. It seems like something in elven biology doesn't allow for the skin to scar. They don't get scar tissue. It just mends back to how it was before the injury. So they've got beautiful, flawless skin. They very, very rarely ever wrinkle. They don't tend to show signs of aging. And so they're beautiful. They've got pointed ears. These ones are much shorter than you're used to elves being. Elves aren't very tall on the whole, but they're taller than dwarves. They're usually between 5 and 6 feet. These ones are probably just over 5 feet tall. Not a lot, not very tall at all. They are very dark skinned, so their skin is sort of the color of obsidian or like a very dark ink blue. And they have quite light eyes and pitch white hair. Pitch white? Bleached white hair? I don't know. What would you call it? Platinum white hair? They're all wearing regular sort of robes. Nothing stands out about their clothing. It's just kind of useful and practical clothing. Keeps them nice and warm, what have you. You do notice that they're all kind of squinting as you walk up to them. And they bone white. That's a nice one. Bone white hair. No, bone has got a tinge of yellow to it. Snow white. Chalk white. Chalk. Yeah, we'll say one of them has chalk white hair. One of them has snow white hair. One of them has paper white hair. A ghost. Then you enter the cave. They ask you your name in Elvish, and you don't understand. So then one of them says, "Do you speak the common tongue?" I do. Sorry, I don't speak Elvish. I'm learning in a couple of words here and there, but not a lot. Very well, that's fine. Most of us speak many words of common at the very least. You are welcome to come in. You're very welcome. We haven't had a dwarf here in quite some time, and your companion as well. Not often that we see giant versions of the insects around the forest. You are very welcome. And she says, "Oh, thank you all very much." And he doesn't seem to respond to that, so you're not sure whether he fully understood it or just heard it as buzzing. But they usher you into the cave entrance, and you can see that it just seems like a regular cave. There's nothing to it. It's like, what? How many of them live here? Is it just these 4 guys just living in a cave? But as they walk and talk and sort of welcome you, they walk over to just a boulder, nondescript boulder, not even large enough to be a stalagmite. It's just kind of like a rock that sits on the ground. and one of them just grabs it by the top and lifts it up as if it's made of polystyrene. And below it is like a large hole in the ground with ladders. And he says, "You're welcome to come on in. What is your purpose of being here?" And Viren says, "So there's not like it's wait, he's Scottish. He's Welsh, isn't he? He's a dragon, is it? Oh boy, oh." Says, sorry, we can't really stay for very long. I just wanted to warn you. We're in the area. There's an ogre in town. That it attacked. It attacked us at Helwerin. They stole a lot of our food, and we tracked it back to the camp nearby. And the Drow says, "Ah, yes, I think we're aware that there were goblins there. We did not know that there was an ogre with them, but we knew that there was the goblins. They'd been keeping to themselves, so we didn't do anything about it yet. We couldn't afford to lose the men for no particular reason. Yes, well, now there is reason apparently, because they've attacked us and they have an ogre and wolves, and we give them a spiel. We stand and talk for like 5 minutes. The guy puts the rock back down, and it instantly blends in with the surroundings perfectly. Right. Well, if you're not in danger, we need to really shoot out. We're pretty sure that they're on another heist. Another not heist. What would the word be? They're on another pillaging spree. They're looking for somebody. Have you heard word from no, not Minglofar. That's these guys. Have you heard from Aruchel or Dolbin Iluad this morning or anything? No, we haven't. We haven't heard from anyone from Aruchel in maybe a month now. But Dolbin Iluad, there was a messenger from there about 2-3 days ago, and they were fine. No mention of anything. Right. Well, we really have to shoot off then, I suppose. Thank you. Just stay vigilant in case they do come back to this area. You should definitely be aware that there's an ogre. Very well. Thank you for the warning. And they usher you back to the front of the cave system. So, guys, where are we going from here? It seems that that at least Minglofau is safe for the time being. They are doing their thing. So let's start another poll. We've at least where to now? Stop trying to talk and type. It makes for lots of spelling mistakes. Aruchel, which is the treetop village, Dolbin Iluad, which is the farming village, or Backtrack. There you go. You got 1 minute to decide. So the benefit is that we've at least warned this village that they should be ready for an attack. The downside is we've given the pillaging party a chance to overtake us, chance to gain ground on us, I should say, since they were already in front of us. Should develop a pigeon system. Yeah, they've never needed it before, Periwinkle. I do actually have a pigeon system in my world in place, by the way, for humans. Humans use homing pigeons to send messages. So most large towns and cities have a rookery where you can go and send pigeons and ravens and eagles, depending on the distance that you need it to go. So the next closest village is definitely the astronomers at this point, Aruchel. They're both east of us. Yeah, they're both east of us now. Dolbin Iluad is probably slightly southeast of us, but east by southeast, I would say. So either way, we'd need to head east. Dolbin Iluad. So we're actually going to bypass the hoity-toity up in the treetops Aruchel and head straight for the farming village of Dolbin Iluad. What was the split? Oh, it was pretty landslide as well. 2 people voted Backtrack, 3 people voted Aruchel, and 9 people voted for Dolbin Iluad, which is the Prin flowers used for potions and things. Don't know which is which. I specifically said them while I was writing them, so that you'd know which one was which. And I've said them multiple times now. You gotta listen. All right. Goblins aren't really known for their arboreal skills. No, they're not really. But who knows about ogres? Ogres can't climb trees, right? They'll be fine, right? You could have asked in the chat, Wraith, and I would have given another reminder of which ones were which. All right, so you start to leave. We will say to make this story-wise make sense as a decision that Apis and Varian would make. They say the as you're leaving Minglofau, he says, the guy you met says, if listen, I can spare one of our men to head to Aruchel now. If you want to make tracks faster, you just head to Dolben Iluad as fast as you can and try and beat the ogres there, and then at least everybody's aware. He says, that's a perfect idea. Yes, please send somebody to Aruchel. We'll head to Dolben Iluad. And so you set off out. You climb back down the mountainside as quickly as you can. Mel buzzing along in front of you. And one guy he's not far behind you. One of the drow with his crossbow sets off out on a jog. He switched his crossbow out for a light crossbow now since he's on the move. He doesn't want to carry his heavy crossbow with him for the journey. But they set off, and you very quickly split path with him, and he sets off slightly north as you turn slightly south and keep moving through the forest. So since we are not finding tracks anymore, we're just heading directly there. We can move at the fastest pace we can. Do we want to move at such a fast pace that we risk getting exhaustion, but the benefit being that we might get there before any attack happens? Or do we want to move at the fastest pace we can do so comfortably? What do you guys think? Like, sprinting the whole way there means that we'll get there super fast, but we will potentially get exhaustion depending on how we roll on a Constitution saving throw. Define risk. I will force us all three of us to make a Constitution saving throw, and if we fail, I'm not going to tell you what the DC is, but what time is it? It would be noon when we finished that. It would be an hour, so 1ish. It'd probably be about 1:30 at this stage. What does exhaustion do? That is a good question. So exhaustion comes in 6 levels. If you get 1 level of exhaustion, it's not too bad. You just have disadvantage on all your skill checks. So any check that you do, like a perception check, a stealth check, a survival check, that's all at disadvantage. If you get 2 levels of exhaustion, it gets slightly worse. You get a disadvantage on all your skill checks, but you also have... what does the second level do? I forget. Let me check. I always forget the second level for some reason. Your speed is halved. I always think that comes later. When you get 2 levels of exhaustion, your speed is halved. So our speed is normally 25 feet per round. We would only be able to move at 12.5 feet per round. 3 levels of exhaustion... gives you disadvantage on all rolls, so not only skill checks but also saving throws and attack rolls. 4 levels of exhaustion, your hit point maximum is halved, so our hit points would go down from a 22 to an 11. 5 levels of exhaustion, your speed is reduced to 0, you just can't walk anymore. And the 6th level, you're dead. If you ever get 6 levels of exhaustion, you are dead. So people are pretty much saying fastest safe speed. If there's an attack, we don't want to be at disadvantage. You wouldn't be at disadvantage with a single level of exhaustion. Not on attacks. So you can still fight just fine with a single or even 2 levels of exhaustion. Maria says, don't risk the exhaustion. White Chocobo says, move it at comfortable. Wraith says, fastest safe speed. Yeah, you're all pretty much in agreement there, so there's no need for a poll. We'll go with the overarching consensus. Mary G would risk a single level of exhaustion, but unfortunately that part of Apis' brain is drowned out by the rest of us. So we decide to set off at a fast pace, but not at such a sprinting pace that it was going to tire us out before actually getting there. And as we arrive, it would probably take us an hour, another hour, 2 hours from there, an hour from there, so it would take us another 2 hours. So it would take us 2 hours at a fast pace to get to where we're going. So 1:30 through to about 3:30-ish in the afternoon. We haven't stopped to eat yet, so we're probably starting to get pretty hungry. I don't think... Does he have Goodberry? Goodberry's a first level spell, isn't it? You can choose what you're going to be doing for the day, and he knew he was going to be out as a messenger, so he probably would have picked Goodberry. Wait, no, you can't choose. No, rangers can't choose their spells every day. He doesn't have Goodberry. He has Hex and Cure Wounds. Can't remember what else I gave him. Doesn't matter. He doesn't have Goodberry. So, where the hell was I? So you move for 2 hours to the east, deciding it's no time to stop. We can eat when we get there. So from breakfast right through to 3:30, you've done a lot of running around the forest, but you haven't had time to stop for a snack yet. And so Veron's a ranger as well. You start to arrive at the village. He says it's just up here. And then you start to see the muddy track turn into more of a well-worn track, like something that's been compact dirt, like something that has been travelled frequently. And he says, "This is the right road that takes us all the way into the town." You arrive at Dobbin Ilawad. You can start to see sod buildings that are not only made of wood like they are in the hunting village, but they are sort of cobbled together with dry stone walls and wood. Wooden plinths and wooden wooden struts to maintain the structure and integrity of the houses. You see some of them are destroyed, seemingly recently across the paths, destroying things. You also see a couple of bodies lying here, and it seems like yes, they are in the midst of an attack, or they have recently been attacked. As you approach, you see an elf crawling towards you out of the village, and he says, "As they just left, please, we need your help." Seeing that you're both armoured, you're both heavily armed in your mace, short sword, and longbow. These things below here in your inventory, you're carrying them with you. The ogre has seemingly attacked and has left these guys for dead. Unfortunately, with the detour that you guys took, you gave them a bit too much advantage, and they've managed to take the time to do some smashings. So this is where we're going to start next time. You can see, I'll make a perception check, see how well we can see it. Let's have a look. Skill, perception. So with Apis' perception, we get a 7. 9 actually, because it's in a forest. So we can see what I've just described. You can see some injured elves. You can see the houses are destroyed, and the guy who just crawled out to you pointed through the village towards the other end of the village, and saying, "Please, we need your help." And that's where we're going to leave it, and we're going to pick up there next time.